we're back.
Hello again. Welcome to episode 89 of The Horror Guys.
I'm Brian.
And I'm Kevin.
And we got movies for you.
We're going to talk about some movies this week.
What do we got this time?
We got Dracula, AD 1972.
Ooh.
A couple of Dark Shadows movies, The House of Dark Shadows and Night of Dark Shadows. Those are from the TV series Dark Shadows.
Johnny Depp?
Running. No, not that one.
No Johnny Depp in these. Oh, these are the originals.
And The Omen IV, The Awakening. The Omen movie, which
Shouldn't have been.
Shouldn't have been. Yeah.
Previous movie was The Final Conflict, and it wasn't.
There is a fourth book, and I got excited at first when you said, "Oh, we're going to watch The Omen IV." Oh, it wasn't that book. Yeah. So anyway, let's talk about these.
Yeah, so here we... No, we don't.
Where's your notes?
There.
Okay.
Okay, before we get going, what else is new?
Has anybody written any books lately?
Well, maybe.
Well, as a matter of fact, Brian has.
As I'm holding these in my hand here, we've got 2 every week since the first episode. We've been talking about old Universal films, like one every week.
Hold them close to the microphone so they can see them.
Here they are. Here they are.
They look really sharp.
They do. They're nice. Okay, but anyway, we have collected all 99 so far.
The Shock and Son of Shock.
Yeah. These were released in 1950, the late 1950s to TV stations. The Universal had been making horror movies since the 1920s, and people weren't going to the theaters quite so much by the time the 50s rolled around, because TV was around.
But television was hot, and they needed a lot of shows and a lot of movies to fill up all this airspace that they suddenly have.
So they came up with this package called Shock Theater in 1957 that they sold 52 movies to various TV stations around the country.
And it was so successful, they did it again and called it Son of Shock.
Yeah, 52 films. That's like one a week.
Yeah.
So they get, somebody in there to introduce the movies. And this is the birthplace of horror hosts. So if you've seen Svengoolie or somebody like that in modern times, every station used to have their own guy like that.
And what it was a solution to fill out, because the station would have, a 2-hour block, for instance. We got to put a horror movie in there, but the movie isn't necessarily 2 hours long.
It's an hour and 10 minutes without commercials.
Yeah, so they'd have the host do funny stuff and clips and skits and, stuff like that to fill out and flesh it out to make this regular TV show.
And I totally remember in the 70s and maybe the early 80s in Dayton, the Saturday morning horror show was called Shock Theater.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Creep was the horror host, and he definitely knew how to fill out a couple hours.
And there you go.
And most towns have a story like that. But the first book is about the original Shock Theater package of 52 movies, and the second book is an additional 47 films, the 20 from Son of Shock and 27 other really big ones. For example, the Creature from the Black Lagoon films. They weren't actually in either of the packages, but you got to admit that those were pretty important movies. So they're in there.
Sure were, yeah.
And you can pick these up as paperback or ebook at Amazon, or if you go to horrorguys.com/books, you can find them on all the usual places: Kobo, Barnes & Noble, and so forth.
Wherever fine books are sold.
Along with our previous books, Tales to Make You Shiver, Volume 1 and Volume 2.
I wrote some of the stories in Volume 2.
Yeah, the best stories in Volume 2.
Well,
I probably shouldn't say that.
That's very nice of you to say.
Because then nobody's going to want Volume 1, because I wrote that one. But yeah, go to horrorguys.com/books and follow the links and check them out. But meanwhile, we've got movies to talk about.
Dracula, AD 1972.
Yeah, and here we go.
And it came out in 1972.
Shocker.
Mm-hmm. Christopher Lee again, and Peter Cushing.
Directed by Alan Gibson, written by Don Houghton, stars Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, Stephanie Beacham. Hour and 36 minutes. Did you like it?
Quite a bit, yeah. It was like a 1970s time capsule.
Oh, yeah.
The music and just everything about it, screaming 70s. And well, watching it, you watch modern movies where they set them in the 70s, and you think, oh, what all this great retro outfits and clothes and all this attention to detail. And I had to keep reminding myself, no, it was really 1972.
It was probably the clothes they wore to work.
That's why it looks so 70s and sounds so 70s. And yeah.
Yeah, they were trying to update Dracula for the modern day. Everything was going to be current and modern and, just like real. And it is so dated looking today. It's a retro film.
1972 without meaning to be dated, it just is. But it's dated in a good way.
Like you said, it's a time capsule.
It's entertaining.
You can see the way things were.
Yeah, the way we were.
Okay, yeah, well, I definitely liked it also. It's 1872, and Dracula battles Van Helsing in Hyde Park, London. The carriage they're both riding on hits a tree. Van Helsing is thrown clear, but Dracula is impaled on a wagon wheel, of all things, and melts to dust.
Never see him again.
When he fell in the ice, that was pretty bad. When he fell on his own cross, that was pretty bad. When he got tricked into being exposed to the sunlight, that was pretty terrible. To run over yourself with your own carriage?
How embarrassing.
Yes. I wouldn't have come back if I was him. So a strange young man rides up and steals Dracula's ring and vial of his powdered remains. Van Helsing then dies. I don't remember now. Was it from the accident, or was he just old age later on? Happy ending?
I think it was more of a happy ending, yeah.
Okay, so it's 100 years ago and he's dead. At Van Helsing's funeral, the young man buries the powder just outside the cemetery. 100 years later, it's now 1972, and there's a party going on with all the early 70s stereotypes in attendance. Johnny Alucard, the young man we saw in the past, is here as well.
Hey, did you know that Alucard is Dracula spelled backwards?
No.
Yeah.
Look at that.
I just figured that out.
Yeah, he doesn't look any older. And it's never quite clear if this is a descendant of that guy or the same guy has
somehow
managed to live for 100 years without aging.
I tend to think it was a descendant, but they weren't clear at all on that.
No, they never said.
And he dabbles in magic, and the implication is it could have been that guy.
Yeah.
Van Helsing, it's one of his descendants, is Peter Cushing again.
Yeah.
Playing a descendant of Van Helsing.
That's clearly explained who he is, though.
Yeah. Alucard, it's not as clear.
Yeah. Well, none of these people have been invited to the party, so they all take bets on how long it'll be until the police arrive.
Yeah, they're just crashing some poor guy's house.
This old couple in their tuxedo and fancy dress, and here's all these 70s hippies in there. This excruciatingly long scene involves a heavy focus on two musical numbers from a band that never went anywhere, and whose name, Stoneground, doesn't even ring any bells today. So it's one of those cases where, probably the producer's grandson or somebody was in the band, and let's give him some publicity.
And
they did. Work.
Yeah.
And it didn't work.
Didn't stick, though.
Yeah, but that scene in the party probably goes on 10, 15 minutes.
A little bit too long,
it's nothing really happens. It's just, let's watch this musical number.
Kind of introducing this group of friends and this people. And
yeah.
Then they all go to a club afterward, where Johnny goes to a club and dares his friends to have a date with the devil.
Or a bacchanal with Beelzebub.
That's clever.
He's very into alliteration.
Mm-hmm.
And they think it sounds radical. They make their plans for midnight that night, and we see that Johnny still has the ring and the powder.
Or his descendant, his ancestors told him where it was, and it's been passed on for, 3 generations or whatever. But
yeah. Jess and Bob are planning to attend the Black Mass, but Jess is a little freaked out. Bob convinces her that it's just a giggle. Wow. It's just a giggle.
It's just a giggle. Yeah.
So Bob says that, and Jess's grandfather is an anthropologist who is an expert in such things.
Van Helsing.
We see her grandfather, Lorimer Van Helsing, who looks exactly like the old Van Helsing. And of course, he's a descendant.
Mm-hmm.
Jessica Van Helsing and boyfriend Bob head over to the cemetery just before midnight. They look at her great-grandfather's headstone right out in front. The Black Mass begins. Johnny seems to know what he's doing as he calls on the demons and devils. Meanwhile, outside, Dracula rejuvenates in the grave outside where he planted the dust 100 years ago. Dracula is hungry after awakening, and he bites Laura, one of Jess's friends, and Johnny watches. They find her body the next morning and chalk it up to a cult murder. The next night, Johnny brings a girl to his house for a bite, only he's not the one biting.
He has a house guest now.
She is not the one, Dracula complains.
Yeah, he's got like one line and he's a whiner about it.
Oh, somebody who's got so famous with so few lines.
Yeah, so little dialogue. Does he have any other dialogue in this one?
I think he probably does.
A little bit, but yeah. But that's his first big line.
Yeah, but it's also clear that he's looking for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Inspector Murray of the police go to see Old Man Van Helsing and ask his opinion. They also question Jess, who didn't know Laura was killed. That night, Van Helsing figures out that the name Alucard... What?
Is Dracula spelled backwards?
Who knew? Meanwhile, Johnny Alucard starts demanding immortality from Dracula.
Bad move. You don't demand from Dracula. Nobody demands.
This time, though, Dracula actually gives in to his whining, biting him and giving him power. Johnny then goes out and feeds on a girl at the laundromat. I mean, why not?
Yeah, sure.
Van Helsing and Murray discuss the murders, but Murray just won't accept the idea of vampires, and Van Helsing reminds Murray about how to kill a vampire with silver or clear running water. Alucard and non-vampire Bob kidnap Jess and take her to Dracula. Beep! Alucard and now vampire Bob kidnap Jess and take her to Dracula. Van Helsing finds another of Jess's friends who knows where Alucard lives. Van Helsing confronts Alucard in his apartment, and he ends up dying in the shower, in clear, running water. What's worse than getting the ice shot out from under you in front of your castle moat?
Just dying in the shower because
running
water kills vampires.
Yeah, running water is apparently easier to find than it was in the 1800s.
So vampires don't shower.
They're
much,
very dirty vampires.
Yeah. The bath would probably be okay as long as you don't get in it while the water's running.
You pull the plug, it starts moving. Why risk it?
Don't pull the plug when you're in it either.
All right. Van Helsing goes to the church, where Dracula hangs out and waits for dark. He does set a few traps as he waits. Van Helsing stabs Dracula with a silver knife, but Jessica walks up and pulls the knife out. Why?
Because she's been hypnotized.
He's already gotten to her.
Uh-huh.
Instead, Van Helsing throws holy water in his face and drops him into a trap full of stakes. Dracula turns to dust once again as the two Van Helsings walk home.
And we never see Dracula ever again.
I'm sure that must be the end.
That's the end of Dracula. Yeah.
Well, this one usually gets slammed pretty hard by critics, but for the most part, it's actually pretty entertaining, except for that long party scene.
Yeah, exactly.
The 70s soundtrack really stands out and does take away some of the seriousness of the story. It's all that 70s stuff that you only hear in porn movies nowadays. It's a bit disconcerting seeing Peter Cushing in a modern office building wearing modern clothing. I haven't seen him in very much that wasn't some kind of historical period piece.
Well, it's still kind of a historical period
piece. It is now, yeah, but it wasn't then.
Yeah, right.
Believe it or not, a business suit in the 70s didn't look that much different than it does today.
No, they haven't changed
It's the modern leisure clothes that have really changed.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's performances are good. There's not a lot new here, though. Christopher Lee still gets top billing, even though he only gets about 5 minutes of screen time, while Cushing features through most of the second half of the film. Overall, though, yeah, it was pretty good. And vampires.
More vampires?
Who's your favorite vampire?
Barnabas Collins.
Not Dracula?
Well, I don't know. He's up there.
You know, if you probably counted
Barnabas
screen time,
is pretty cool.
who got the most episodes?
Barnabas by far.
Yeah, somebody should really do a study on
his total screen time. Yeah.
I mean, there's been 18,000 different versions of Dracula, but Barnabas Collins was on every day
years and years as a soap opera.
He may be the
short episodes, but lots of them.
The most longevity of all the vampires.
Plus a couple movies.
Yeah. And the first movie they made? Well, first of all, that Dark Shadows was a daily soap opera that ran for, I don't remember, 5 or 6 years probably, in the late 60s and very early 70s. And it was just your normal, everyday, boring, you know, who's romantically involved with who soap opera for about the first year.
Just an ordinary soap opera.
And the ratings weren't that good.
But then...
So then they decided, let's shake this up a little.
Let's bring in some witches and vampires and werewolves and ghosts.
And it took off, and it was the show of the year when they first did that.
And it has been, it's no longer currently running, but yeah, it ran for years.
It ran for years, and then in the early, so I think the 90s, it came back for about a year with different actors. And then, you know, a couple years ago, Johnny Depp brought it back as a movie again, so... It never really went away. It just keeps resurfacing every few years.
So Jonathan Frid got quite a career out of playing Barnabas Collins.
And as about a typecast as you could possibly get. He never did much of anything else.
That was his big thing. There were some other stuff. He's got some other credits, but that was really his big thing and what he's known for.
Yeah. So. Directed by Dan Curtis, written by Sam Hall and Gordon Russell, stars Jonathan Frid, Grayson Hall, Catherine Leigh Scott, 1 hour, 37 minutes.
And this was kind of felt like a catch-up of the series. Like a highly condensed, here's what's happened so far in the series.
If you've never seen the series and you're wondering what it's about, this would be an excellent place to start. It spoils everything. Well, it's sort of... No, it really doesn't. Well, it kind of
catches you up. It doesn't really spoil it.
Yeah. They don't kill him at the end, do they?
No.
I don't remember now. Yeah, they do. Well, okay.
Not really.
They don't kill him in the series.
Yeah. But
it's based on the series because in the end of the movie, Barnabas is killed. And that never happens in the series. He's an ongoing character. So, yeah, it's a good place to basically figure out whether or not you're going to like the show.
Mm-hmm.
If you like this film, go back and watch the show because...
You'll like it.
It's kind of the same thing, only more of it.
Yeah.
Well, David Collins has gone missing. Maggie Evans goes off looking for Willie, the groundskeeper, who hasn't seen David. Willie has a poem that tells where the legendary jewels are hidden. There's jewels in this here house.
Uh-huh.
Or so it said. Roger Collins, the man of the house, fires Willie for being disrespectful, but Willie swears he'll find more. Willie keeps snooping and comes upon a tomb in the Collins cemetery. He goes down inside and finds a locked coffin in a secret room.
Uh-oh.
He opens up the coffin.
Don't do it.
And
an
arm reaches out and grabs him.
Hello, Barnabas.
Well, Mrs. Stoddard tells her assistant Daphne to go home. Their work is done for today. She walks alone out on the deserted road in the dark. Well, always a good idea. She hears dogs or werewolves or something howling as she walks. She then runs to her car. Someone opens the car door and pulls her back out.
Snack time.
Meanwhile, David has locked Maggie in a bedroom inside the old house on the estate. Except it wasn't David. Roger Collins can't be found either, but turns up after all the action starts to settle down. Dr. Grayson and Sheriff George Patterson examine Daphne's neck wound. And the next day, the police find another victim, bitten in the same way.
Barnabas woke up hungry.
Well, he's been in that coffin for hundreds of years. Todd and Carolyn, and meanwhile you're learning who all these different characters are. Todd and Carolyn spot Willie in the pub, and he's acting a lot calmer and more reasonable than he used to. He says he has a new job, working for the mysterious stranger. That same stranger rings the bell at Collinwood, and he introduces himself as Barnabas Collins, a cousin from England. He looks just like his, quote, grandfather's portrait on the wall. The original Barnabas was said to have gone back to England from America in 1787. He gives Mrs. Stoddard an expensive heirloom necklace, And all questions are ignored.
And that was kind of funny.
Who are you? Can you prove who you are?
And
Look,
they're like,
necklace.
oh, shiny thing, shiny thing. Oh, nice. What were we talking about? Oh, shiny thing.
My favorite relative from England. Well, time passes, and Barnabas takes up residence in the old house on the property, and he and Willie set up restoring the long-abandoned place. We see that Barnabas has moved his coffin into the basement of the old place with Willie as his daytime servant. Carolyn starts getting suspicious, and one bite from Barnabas takes away her curiosity. Barnabas spots Maggie, and she looks just like his lost love from way back when. She's wearing Josette's dress from back in his ancestor's day. Of course, he has no ancestor, he's the guy.
Right, it's really him.
They were to be married before he was cursed. Josette, you have come back to me, he says stalkingly. The real Josette jumped off a cliff when she learned what he had become. Carolyn storms in to cause trouble, and Barnabas almost kills her until Willie intervenes. She dies before morning anyway.
Yeah, and if you've seen the Johnny Depp movie, you know that was very humorous and very spoofy and poking fun and satirizing it. And this is pretty grim and serious. This is, the original's not funny, not like the remake was there.
No, the remake was one of those tongue-in-cheek comedy things. This was pretty much taken seriously.
Yeah.
Well, doctors Hoffman and Stokes discuss science and vampirism. Stokes believes in vampires, and he wants proof. David sees Carolyn wandering in the mist outside, and Stokes wants to hear all about it. David thinks Carolyn wanted to hurt him. Todd goes to the family crypt, and he sees Carolyn in there as well. Carolyn bites him, and later Todd tells everyone what happened. Dr. Hoffman sees that Barnabas doesn't show up in a mirror. Uh-oh. And that convinces her.
And not even his clothes or his cane.
Oh,
there's
that stuff.
There's that detail again. How does that work exactly? His cane, and clothes, and especially
No, they're real. Yeah.
Maybe his original clothes are part of the curse, but he changes clothes, like new clothes. Like, why would the new clothes not be reflected in a mirror?
It's part of the curse.
I overthink this, yes.
Why can't a vampire be seen in a mirror?
Whatever a vampire is wearing and carrying in his hand cannot be seen in the mirror.
It's not an invisibility curse. It's a curse that he cannot see himself.
Okay.
So he can't tell if his face looks good. He can't tell if his tie is on straight. He can't tell if his socks match. You're cursed into not being able to see yourself.
What about his cane, though? That cool, snakehead cane with a silver head.
Yeah.
Metal head. It's probably not silver, but
I bet it is.
But yeah. Okay, so I'm holding the cane. It's invisible. I set it down. Oh, look, I can see it. Pick it up. It's invisible. I would just do that all day. Invisible.
Watch it appear and disappear in the mirror. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah,
okay. Anyway,
way more thought into that than I have.
Going on.
Well, Carolyn starts going on a bit of a rampage, and she lures Todd out to the old house, where the police corner her with crosses, while Stokes gets her with a stake. Stokes
and a stake.
Pretty much everyone is there when it happens, so Roger, Stokes, and the police all know exactly what the real danger is now. They don't know about Barnabas, that they know there's vampires. Julia Hoffman confronts Barnabas. She thinks she can cure him with science. As she continues her research, Barnabas starts courting Maggie. Willie keeps warning her that she's in danger, and she tells Barnabas all about it. Stokes also suspects Barnabas, but suddenly Barnabas can be out in the daylight. It's Julia's cure. Stokes is confused because Barnabas is out in the daylight, but he remembers his conversation with Julia about curing a vampire.
So he kind of becomes a tweener.
Yeah.
Still a vampire, but sort of not. He's getting there. Yeah.
Julia starts getting jealous of Maggie, and she starts messing with the dosage. Suddenly, Barnabas looks hundreds of years old.
And that's some good makeup.
It was, yeah.
That was really excellent.
He kills Julia and bites Maggie. Stokes, Roger, Jeff, and the sheriff discuss what they know, and it seems clear that Barnabas will be coming back to finish off Maggie's soon. See, this is what really never happens in the soap operas.
It never
Everybody
is, sure.
gets together and shares their information. What do you know?
No,
what do you know?
It's
What
more
do you know?
drama that way if you
Nobody
don't communicate.
talks. Yeah. They lay a trap. Barnabas knocks out the guard, drinks from Maggie, and is rejuvenated back to his younger-looking self.
Mm-hmm.
The sheriff hands out silver bullets and says that that'll kill a vampire if you shoot him in the heart. Jeff takes one, but is lured out into an isolated island where Stokes awaits. Stokes has been turned into a vampire as well. Jeff shoots him with a silver bullet, and that does do the job. Jeff then walks to the old house where he finds Roger, who has also been turned. Jeff stakes him and then picks up an old crossbow from the mantle. And again, like I said, pretty much everybody in this movie dies at the end, which is not what happens in the TV series. This is an ongoing thing forever.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to wrap it up for the movie, though.
But this introduces the characters, and you get the background story and all this stuff.
About the first
crammed into,
two-thirds of the movie is what the series is about.
Mm-hmm.
But then once they start wrapping it up, that's not the way the show went. Jeff shoots Willie in the back with a crossbow, and then Barnabas demands that Jeff come down and face him. Jeff has no choice but to obey. Willie, who still isn't quite dead yet, impales Barnabas with a crossbow bolt, and with the hypnosis broken, Jeff finishes him off. After the fog rolls in, a bat flies out of the fog. Could Barnabas have escaped?
Indeed, he could have.
Well, this was filmed concurrently with the TV series, and actors had to take time off from the series to film this. And this is also the basic plot that was used for the 2012 Johnny Depp parody. The quality is about what you'd expect for a low-budget film using existing storylines and characters from a TV soap opera. It's not the greatest acting, it's not the greatest visuals, but it's a good story.
Mm-hmm. I was entertained.
Yeah, the basic storyline was essentially the same story with the same actors several years after the story aired on the TV show. The only serious difference is that this was edited together into a faster-paced movie and was done in color rather than the 25-minute black and white TV episodes. And the ending is very different than anything I ever saw in the old series. Although all the material here was on TV, but by combining so much material, they hit years of storylines. The film feels really rushed and very fast-paced.
Yep, stuff happens.
Barnabas was introduced, and less than an hour later, he's outside walking in the daylight with Maggie. Then he gets old for a few minutes, and suddenly he's getting married. And I could only imagine what it would be like watching this if you weren't already familiar with the characters and story. It's like watching the Cliff Notes version of a series, which may have been the purpose of the film.
I think it was.
To get new viewers caught up and garner attention to the series. Back in the day, there were no reruns of these episodes, but now you can get the whole series and binge on it if you want. So yeah, I mean, without reruns, that would be a tricky thing for a showrunner to deal with.
Yeah, it would.
Who are all these people?
And what has happened so far? Yeah.
Vampires? Witches? Werewolves? What? Well, there's really not much in the way of special effects here at all, although Jonathan Frid's makeup is really good when he gets old. I'd say that if you're a fan of the series or want to see what the story was about, it's worth 2 hours to catch up or introduce the characters to someone. Then again, it is full of spoilers, so take that the way you want.
If you've seen the movie Little Big Man with Dustin Hoffman,
yeah,
that was the same makeup technique and the same kind of thing that they did for his makeup. For Barnabas Collins' age makeup in this.
So yeah, Night of Dark Shadow, or House of Dark Shadows. Definitely a thumbs up for me.
Yep, me too.
If it interests you, go see it. It's worth it.
But then there's Night of Dark Shadows.
But then there's Night of Dark Shadows.
Yeah, which does not have Barnabas Collins. It's a focus on the witches in this one.
Yeah, Night of Dark Shadows from 1971, directed by Dan Curtis, written by Sam Hall, stars David Selby, Grayson Hall, Kate Jackson in either her first film role or a very, very early one. 1 hour, 35 minutes. Did you like it?
Not as much as the previous one, but it was okay.
No, I wouldn't even go that far.
Not even okay.
I give this a 3.
Ooh,
it was kind
harsh.
of painful. It was boring.
Okay. I'll grant that. It was a little bit boring at parts.
Well, they never made a third one.
They didn't make a third one, no. But, overall I was entertained more than not entertained, so...
Every time they do a remake or bring back Dark Shadows, it's always about Barnabas. It's never about Quentin.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Because it's way more interesting. Because Barnabas is way more interesting, yeah.
Quentin and Tracy return to Collinwood after many years away.
And just to touch back on something that you said, and I looked back. Yes, that was her first role.
Very first?
In Dark Shadows.
She was nobody before this.
She was in the TV series and then The Night of Dark Shadows.
She was in the TV series?
Oh, she was. 71 episodes.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And this movie, this was her first work.
Yeah, I didn't see the whole series. My local station stopped carrying it after the first year or two's.
And then lots of stuff after that.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, she has 58 IMDb acting credits.
Is that all?
Well, a lot of it is...
years and years on a series.
Yeah, series with multiple episodes. The Scarecrow and Mrs. King, for instance, there was 89 episodes of that. Yeah. That was a classic one. Charlie's Angels, 69 episodes. So she had a good career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, they pass the boarded-up old house on the way in, but they plan on staying at the main place. They are greeted by Carlotta Drake, the housekeeper, who looks a lot like Dr. Hoffman, but isn't. This is a different role for the same actress. She tells us that Mrs. Stoddard has died, and that these two are the new owners of the house. So, yeah, the whole thing, it's kind of the same universe, and there's a lot of the same actors in it, in different roles.
Which was confusing watching them back to back.
Now, in the original series, there was a modern day, had all these characters, and a couple of times they flashed back to the 1800s. And all the characters played their own ancestors.
Further confusing things.
So Professor Stokes was like this old witch hunter in the past. And Maggie Evans was the school teacher in the past, and now she's the tutor. All the characters from the present were alive in the past, but they were similar characters or relatives. Here, I don't know why they didn't recast these parts. The actress who played Dr. Hoffman plays this Carlotta, the housekeeper. There's no point to it whatsoever, other than, hey, we got these characters under contract, actors under contract or something.
We've worked with them before, and we know they're good to work with, and let's just use them.
Yeah. And a lot of the characters don't come back. Like Mrs. Stoddard has died. Why? Probably because the actress didn't want to do another one.
Yeah.
Well, okay, he's a painter, and he admires the painting of Angelique Collins, who died in 1810. Quentin is immediately drawn to the painting. He then sees a vision of a dead woman hanging from the tree outside. That night, he dreams of witches being executed. The next day, he goes out riding and has visions of Angelique's funeral in the rain. Quentin visits with Alex Collins and Claire Jenkins, two more actors recycled in different roles. As Willie and Carolyn were the other characters in the other movie. So they're back, sorta, but not really. Later, he sees himself as Charles Collins, a man who is having an affair with the already married to his brother, Angelique. There are lots of blurry photos of people walking around the house in an extended but unnecessary dream state. The brother catches Charles and Angelique together, and they fight. He wakes up to find that in real life he has just beaten up Gerard, the stable boy, and strangled Tracy.
Awkward.
What did you do last night? I don't know. Yeah, you're going to find out.
Yeah.
They'll both recover, but they don't seem to mind for some reason. Maybe he just, beats them up in his sleep all the time.
Perfectly. Must be Tuesday.
Alex Collins sees someone in white wandering around the old abandoned greenhouse, but when he goes inside, no one is there. Quentin confronts Mrs. Drake about the things he's seen, and she explains that he has seen Sarah Castle, a little girl who later reincarnated into Mrs. Drake in the present time. That's a little girl who reincarnated into me, she says.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
He has the ability to see the past, and he's seen the events around Angelique's death. Sarah was in the room when the townspeople conspired to kill the witch Angelique. Angelique's husband is in on it. They all take Angelique out to the tree and hang her. And again, this was all hundreds of years ago. Tracy finally goes into Quentin's studio and finds a painting of Quentin holding Tracy's dead body in front of Angelique, as if in some kind of offering. Quentin apologizes and then attacks Tracy. He seems to be switching personalities between Quentin and Charles. Angelique's ghost nearly kills Alex one night, and Claire sees the ghost as well. Charles, possessing Quentin, tries to kill Tracy once again, and she's only saved when Claire and Alex find her by accident. Then there's a car chase in the dark, and a knife battle between Quentin/Charles and Gerard the stable boy, until Tracy kills Gerard. Okay, there was fighting.
Yep, fighting happened.
Quentin and Tracy decide they have to hunt down Carlotta, as this is all her fault. Always blame the housekeeper.
Oh, yeah.
The butler didn't do it, they don't have one. Tracy confronts Angelique while Carlotta jumps off the roof to her death. Quentin and Tracy decide to sell the estate. Quentin goes back inside the house, and he and Angelique then kill Tracy. We are told in a news report that Claire and Alex were killed off screen in a car crash, completely out of the blue. The end. Alright.
Yeah, that happened.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Maybe. Jonathan Frid was all set to return as Barnabas Collins, but decided to turn down the role for fear of being typecast as a vampire. And you know how many things you've seen Jonathan Frid in since the 70s?
What have you known him for besides Barnabas Collins?
Yeah, it was too late at that point. That may have been the worst career move in show business.
Would have been some more work.
Yeah. In the end, they rewrote the story to feature Quentin Collins and his different non-vampiric problems. There's really no relationship between this film and the vampire storyline at all. They use many of the same actors in completely new roles, and supposedly this is an alternate timeline where everything is the same but kind of different. Why they thought people would pay to see that is beyond me. There has to be a good behind-the-scenes story about how and why this thing was made. It wasn't good. It was actively bad, I thought. It's like let's make another movie and made every wrong choice they could.
Well, I'd give it a 5.5, pushing 6 out of. I'm not that harsh on it.
I'm a Dark Shadows fan. I really like Dark Shadows. I give this a 3 going on 2.
Ouch.
Supposedly, the director was told to cut out 35 minutes of this film to get it down to where it is. That's really saying something, because what's left still really drags and feels like it was padded with a ton of filler. I didn't mention many scenes of long looks and angsty posing, but there's a lot of that going on. A lot of the story makes absolutely no sense, and you have to wonder what got cut that left this tediously long mess behind. I wouldn't recommend to anyone but a hardcore Dark Shadows completionist.
Yeah.
It's pretty horrifying.
I was curious. I just looked up Jonathan Frid. 597 episodes of Dark Shadows. He's only got 9.
Well, 5 a week for years.
He's got 9 IMDb credits, and 3 of them are Dark Shadows related.
Is that all? I
Yeah.
would have thought he did more than that.
He did a lot of stage work. He was big on stage. But as far as IMDb, yeah, there's 9 entries. Yeah.
Well, that was the Dark Shadows movie up there. He had a cameo in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this House of Dark Shadows and the Dark Shadow series. Those are 3 of his 9 entries.
Huh.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was that typecast. That's pretty bad.
Yeah, yeah. And then
He died.
yeah, well, yeah, 2012. Yeah.
Yeah. Probably back making vampire movies soon. Let's see. Open the coffin. Well, speaking of movies that shouldn't have been made, Omen IV, The Awakening.
Why?
Because they wanted more money on a solid franchise.
Well, and they had in mind to make this into a TV series.
Yeah, this was made for TV.
And
This was not a theater
which
film.
is part of its problem. Yeah.
1991, Omen IV, The Awakening. Directed by Jorge Montesi and Dominique Othenin-Girard. Written by Brian Taggett, Harvey Bernard, Stars Faye Grant, Michael Woods, Michael Lerner. Hour and 37 minutes. All right. Faye Grant. You remember V, the TV series?
Yeah.
She was the head freedom fighter.
She was?
And she had to have been my least favorite character in V.
Okay.
And she drags that same lack of enthusiasm to the Omen IV. I didn't like her here either.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't make that connection that was her.
That's her.
Okay, yeah. Huh.
So, I take it you didn't like it.
No, this one I give a solid 3. I'm going to harsh on this one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't hate it as much as you did. I'll give it a... But it wasn't good.
It was tame and dull.
Yeah. Well, it was made for TV, so it had to be a little tamer.
A lot tamer. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a 4, maybe a 5.
Okay.
I didn't hate it as badly as you did, but I didn't read the 4th book. You did.
Mm-hmm.
If you thought the book was that much better.
Well, the 4th book wasn't great, but it was greater than this. So, yeah. It would have made a much better movie.
Again, this was not a pilot episode exactly, but an introductory movie that was planning to go to series. And it flopped. Alright, so, in the beginning, Michael and Karen York are adopting a baby girl. We see them go to the orphanage and drive away with their new happy baby. There's an unexpected eclipse that night, and the nuns at the orphanage fight to the death. Alright. The new baby's name is Delia. Delia?
Delia.
And at the baby's baptism, the baby cries a lot, but doesn't burst into flame or anything. So she got baptized. That didn't work out so well with Damien.
Yeah, he didn't go into the church at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The priest dies that night from an apparent heart attack. A few years later, Gene decides to run for Congress and wins easily, now heading the Finance Committee. Got to fit some politics into this, too. Because politics was a big part of the other 3 movies.
It was part of the prophecy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The nun from the orphanage still stalks Delia. A big black dog saves Delia's life, and they adopt him. A bully at school stomps on Delia's lunch, and she bites him. The next day, she climbs a dangerously high ladder and dares him to follow, but he pees himself instead. You see, in the other Omen movies, people got beheaded.
See, in
they
the other
hung
movies,
themselves.
other Omen movies, he would have fallen into a wood chipper.
And here, he pees himself.
Yeah.
The boy's father threatens to cause trouble, but is almost immediately beheaded by rear-ending a flatbed truck.
Okay. Well,
All right,
there was
there we
that.
go. Yeah, okay.
Now you're talking.
It's got that going for it.
Yeah. Although it was not nearly as graphic as
No,
the
it
other
was
movies.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all... Remember TV in the
Yeah.
90s.
Tame TV.
Early 90s.
Yeah.
Delia goes to riding school, but she spooks all the horses. She goes to the hospital after falling from the horse, and Dr. Hastings wants to do some tests. You know, that didn't work out for Damien's doctor.
No, that didn't.
Karen hires a nanny, Jo, to help. Jo is into the healing power of crystals, and Delia thinks that's really stupid. And Delia's not wrong.
But there's magic involved here.
Oh, yeah.
This proves the crystals are real in this movie.
Yeah. At a touch, Delia turns all her crystals black. Jo sees an inverted cross in the mirror, and Michael thinks that that's a silly thing to worry about. Jo wants to take Delia to a psychic fair, and she freaks out all the psychics until the fair burns to the ground. Okay.
Yeah.
It's an outdoor fair. You've been to like the state fair kind of thing with booths and rides, and many people burn to death. How does that happen in an outdoor festival that's like outdoors?
Not that many people burned to death, I don't think.
Some did.
Some did, yeah.
Jo tells Karen that Delia is very powerful, which upsets her, but she's not convinced. Jo takes a flying leap out of the upstairs window and stops being annoying. Yay!
Yay.
No more Jo. Jo's dead, but now Karen is pregnant. One damn thing after another.
Yeah.
Karen continues to wonder about Delia's evil nature, but Jean continues to think it's ridiculous. Karen goes to see a priest. A couple of religious women stop by and drop off a Watchtower magazine, or something like it. Delia opens the door, and it goes badly for them. That was fun.
Yeah.
Karen wants to find the nun from the orphanage. Karen hires a PI to find out more about Delia's natural parents. The nun has changed her name and now runs a cult in North Carolina. as nuns tend to do. They track down Felicity the nun, and she now walks through nests of poisonous snakes in the service.
Yeah, she's
well, one of the snake people.
Snake handler.
Yeah,
Snake.
yeah.
What do? There's a term for that.
Snake handlers.
Okay, is it just snake
Yeah,
handlers?
I think so.
Okay.
Well, there's specific denominations, but in general, they're snake handlers.
Yeah.
The detective is bitten, and Felicity is killed by the snakes. The detective mails his evidence to Karen, and then dies because he envisions an evil choir of singing zombies and is hit by a giant wrecking ball. Oh, Final Destination's got nothing on this guy.
That was actually the best scene in the movie.
Yeah, but it was so improbable.
Yeah, exactly.
Contrived. Yeah, that was a Final
Very much
Destination
so.
death. Karen has her baby, and she gets more and more afraid to be near Delia. She stabs Dr. Hastings and makes him tell her about Damien and the Antichrist. He explains that baby Alexander is somehow... Okay, now pay attention, because here it gets weird. He explains that baby Alexander is somehow Delia's twin brother with his fetus implanted in Karen. So she's like 6 years old, and now her twin brother is coming out. Karen kills the doctor, takes his gun, and goes after Delia.
The twin was inside Delia. The doctor took the fetus out of Delia, put it in Karen, I think.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Delia was born.
So you got the unformed baby inside a 5-year-old or whatever. So you take the unformed baby out, put it inside another mother.
Yeah.
And it grows into a real baby.
Yes, because evil.
Well, this gets dumber by the minute.
Yeah.
Okay, so then Karen kills the new nanny. She points the gun at Alexander and or Delia, but just can't do it. She shoots herself instead. Oh, and the new baby has 666 in his hand. We end with Jean, the ambitious politician, Delia, and baby Alexander leaving the cemetery as the lantern chanting commences.
So the new baby is the real Antichrist.
Yeah, Delia was just a red herring.
And so was the previous Damien was also a red herring who wasn't. Well, I guess maybe this kid is Plan B. I guess.
Should have been a Plan B long before
Damien
this was made.
Was gonna be the Antichrist until he got killed, and then this is the backup plan, I guess.
Yeah, just don't. Maybe they would have explained some of it if it had gone to series.
Yeah, maybe.
This was actually a made-for-TV movie, and it has exactly the amount of sex and gore that you'd expect for a network TV show in the 90s. It was intended as a pilot, and everything from the soundtrack to the dialogue just screams TV show. Basically, it's evil Punky Brewster.
Yes.
Even though a bunch of bad things happen, everything feels extremely watered down and decidedly non-creepy. The wrecking ball scene would have been awesome with today's modern special effects, but here it's mostly left to the imagination. Delia was intended to be the child of Damien and Kate from the Omen III. Damien was actually pretty innocent until he learned his identity in the second film, but Delia seems to have been born evil.
Yeah, she's on board with it right away.
Yeah. There was a scene where baby Delia disappeared, scaring her mother, just like Damien did in The Omen. There's a scene where she spooks horses, just like in The Omen. There's a scene when the nanny goes for a fly and leap, just like in The Omen. And there's a scene where Karen loses her unborn child, just like in The Omen. It wasn't terrible, but there was literally nothing new here. And I guess as a TV reboot, it wasn't awful.
It was awful. Did I say that?
But the audience at the time didn't care for it either, so the series never happened. Yeah.
Didn't care for this one.
So Kevin hated The Omen IV, and I hated The Night of Dark Shadows.
Uh-huh. Something for each of us to hate in this episode.
Equal opportunity movie haters.
Yeah, and kind of liked the other two.
Well, that's our show.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. Stop in at horrorguys.com to read all the reviews and to pick up our books.
Yep.
And to subscribe to the podcast if you aren't already. But get ready for next week, where we'll be watching some more classics.
Tarantula from 1958.
There's something on your shoulder.
Giant spider. Yeah.
Oh, giant spider.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fear in the Night from Hammer, 1972. The Omen remake.
The what?
Yeah, there was a remake of the third movie.
You mean the fourth one wasn't enough?
No, not the third movie. I misspoke. A remake of the first movie, which was done in 2006. And
they should have stopped.
A movie called The Belko Experiment from 2016.
How do you experiment on Belkos?
Guess we'll find out.
The company is called Belko. I know that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and people die, I think.
Yes, in large numbers. Yeah.
Okay, and that's it for this week. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
See ya.